Hi everyone, I'm Najvi and today we have with us Alyssa from On the Move Physical Therapy Pilates. Alyssa, thank you so much for joining the show. I'd love to start with you telling our listeners more about yourself, where you grew up, and where you studied.
Yeah. So, Najvi, thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I have a long story, but I guess I'll make it pretty short for the purposes of this podcast. I'm a physical therapist and Pilates teacher, and I own a clinic studio called On the Move Physical Therapy and Pilates in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. Um, in about 20 minutes south of Belmont. Excuse me, 20 minutes south of San Francisco in a residential suburban type town called Belmont. And I was educated all in the Bay Area, undergraduate in Berkeley, where my main focus of education was education and ethnic studies, but decided at about a few years after school to switch to physical therapy and went to school at UCSF for physical therapy school to get my doctorate. And then after finishing that, I went and got educated to be a Polestar Pilates teacher, or rather a Pilates teacher through Polestar Pilates. Um,
That's lovely.
yeah, so I'm a mom of two kids that are, well, they're not kids anymore. They're adults now. They just left the home and they're in college and married and have a dog and a big family in California.
That's lovely. Even I saw you have also the co-founder of GymSafe. You have a certified Pilates teacher, certified snowboard teacher. So there's a lot that you have covered, and I would want to know about your journeys among how all of it happened, how it came into your life, and how do you feel about it? How was the experience of learning all different things and being very good at it?
You're assuming I'm pretty good at it. I do enjoy it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, I I really do enjoy mentoring young up and coming physical therapists, and they often ask me the same question. And so hopefully this story helps your listeners out there, anybody who's thinking about becoming a physical therapist or Pilates teacher. I grew up loving movement. I was a gymnast, a competitive gymnast, and then I participated in cheerleading and dance and competed. And then I went to college and didn't know that I was going to pursue a career related to movement. Um, and the name of my major was American Studies, which is pretty much like make your own major. Um, so my emphasis, like I said earlier, was minority education, where I took ethnic studies classes and education classes. But after graduating, I decided to work in advertising. And I loved working in advertising. I was pretty much like a project manager. And I got another job after my first advertising gig as a similar type of job, a project manager, but in a tech company. And to be honest, I really, really did not enjoy that job. It paid well, but I told myself that I would never get a job again just for the money. And so when I got laid off of that job, I decided to go for something that I love and went back to gymnastics. And I was coaching gymnastics and really loving that, and decided that I wanted to be the best possible gymnastics coach I could be, and pursued a master's in kinesiology. But and then for those of you that don't know what that is, it's like a science of human movement, right? And
Okay.
in the middle
Interesting.
of that program, I thought, I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do with my master's in kinesiology other than pursue the best possible to be the best possible gymnastics coach I could be, but I wasn't sure if that's really what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So I wanted something a little bit more flexible, but like coaching gymnastics. And at the time, the person that I was dating, who's now my husband, was in school for pharmacy. And I said, okay, I want something like coaching gymnastics, but also kind of like in healthcare, something a little bit more um, like professional as far as like having a license to do something. So I decided that I was going to go to physical therapy school, and which is like pretty much a combination of coaching movement and healthcare. I
Right.
didn't at the time realize that I wanted to specialize in working with gymnasts and dancers, but I mean, in retrospect, that's pretty obvious. I loved it so much. Why wouldn't I go back to specializing in working with those populations? And when I had a job right after physical therapy school that didn't, I loved that job, but it wasn't a clinic that was set up
Hmm.
to really serve the gymnasts and dancers well. And so I wanted to start a clinic that was for them, where we could see them for a longer period of time, where physical therapists had the time to both do manual, like hands on physical therapy, as well as really specific exercise instruction. Um, and so that meant that we needed more time with each patient. And so I decided to open up a clinic. And I at first imagined that it was going to be a small clinic, just me working with that population for a long period of time, like, hour-long appointments. And then it grew. And so after that, I started hiring other people with the same vision that they had for their physical therapy practice. And soon after I opened up practice, I decided to be a Pilates teacher also, because Pilates is a method of exercise that I think uh, dancers are familiar with and can really relate to. And then gymnasts, they can also relate to it, but it moves much more slowly than gymnastics. And so it's a particular weakness that gymnasts might have. They're really, really strong, but can just kind of power through any motion. And so Pilates forces you to think about how you get to your positions and how to slow down your movement and control it. And so I thought it would be a good method of exercise to bring to the gymnasts and dancers. And then finally, as we grew, more people started seeing us beyond the gymnasts and dancers, like the parents and the siblings, family members of the gymnasts and dancers. And I wanted to have a big enough space for all of that, seeing that population, as well as provide injury prevention and fitness for that bigger population that we were working with. And from the get go, I always imagined having an exercise space where physical therapists could teach fitness in the physical therapy kind of way, which means a little bit less focus on just body shaping and losing weight, and a little bit more focus on mind body awareness, knowing how to position your body for efficiency and for injury prevention rather than just for strengthening, and so I tried for many years to open up different group exercise classes. And in the space that we were in, we couldn't quite do that. And then finally, space next door to our physical therapy clinic opened so we could expand. And recently, as of January 2024, started offering group Pilates classes taught by physical therapists, and then Pilates teachers that are also trained by physical therapists. So yeah, so that's what we've been doing for the past year.
That's really lovely. It also tells me about all the iterations that made you come close to okay what you're actually doing right now and to find this niche, and it's quite inspiring, quite interesting. So how did you develop a passion for fitness and how did you remain consistent with it? It's not something that everyone can do to remain consistent with it. So how did you do it?
Um, Well, I'm going to answer that question in a second, but I do want to answer one more thing, which is
Please.
that through that whole process, I was still like continuing to live my life. Like, when I started physical therapy school, I had two kids. And
Hmm.
so um, if anybody out there is listening, that's like a budding physical therapist or Pilates teacher and wondering how they're going to mix that up with family planning, I just want you to know that it is possible. And to go to your more recent question, which is how I developed a passion for it, I think I was just lucky enough um, to be exposed to gymnastics in a way that I enjoyed it, at least for the first part of my life. And when I stopped enjoying gymnastics, I was given the permission by my parents to stop doing it. I say given the permission because I think I was pretty good at gymnastics, pretty serious about it. And they were disappointed a little bit that I wanted to switch sports. But I started getting tired of all the hours. There's a lot of hours in gymnastics, and I wanted a life, and I was getting a little scared of all the big movements I was doing, and I was being pushed really fast. And so so they let me quit when I wanted to quit, and I switched to cheerleading, which brought in a lot of the skills that I took from gymnastics, and so I felt pretty successful with cheerleading. So I think that positive exposure to a new sport was good. Like and that's a lot of what Pilates does, is give people a moment to feel a positive movement experience. And so because I had skills already going into cheerleading, like gymnastic skills, I felt successful soon on. And so I felt good about it. And then when I stopped doing cheerleading, I switched to dance, which was like a likely transition. And again, it was challenging for me because dance is different from cheerleading and gymnastics, but similar enough that I had the strength and the flexibility to feel good about it when I was doing it. And then after that, snowboarding came because to be honest, because I had a friend, or at the time it was the guy that I was dating was super into snowboarding. And so I think because I did gymnastics and I had the strength and the balance, I could be pretty good at snowboarding. And it's not, I say I was pretty good at all these things is not because I'm particularly athletic or strong or whatever. I think that I set myself up for success in the next one by trying a new sport that wasn't so different from my past. And so I felt good about it. And I think that's a lot of how we teach Pilates and do physical therapy. Like, we don't try to punish people with with the classes. We don't try to make it so hard that everybody feels like, man, that was so hard. My body's dead and I'm shaking and I feel like throwing up. No, like, we don't walk away from our classes feeling like that. You feel good, accomplished, because the way that we teach sets you up to feel successful, or we try to make you feel successful the whole way through. And that's not to say that it's an easy exercise class that you're in. It's just that we hope to set you up and then give you all the options to pick the level of the movement that is appropriate for you, so that you feel invited to do the level that's appropriate for you. And you don't end up walking away feeling like the teacher was so much stronger than you and everybody else in the class was so much more successful than you. You feel good. Yeah.
That's quite a good thought process, and I can totally relate there. In Pilates, mostly it can happen where you come to the class and it's a lot of struggle, and sometimes if you would see someone else, okay, it's just me who's struggling, or just a few bunch of people, it can be demotivating. But it's a very good approach that you have for your classes, and it's great. Like, everyone leaves happy. Is such a great feeling for everyone to feel accomplished after every class. It's commendable. uh the next question that I would have is, it can be a little harder questions, and definitely I would want to know, all the listeners would want to know. So what inspired you to start your own fitness business? So what was the transition where you decided, okay, you know what, I just want to have my own business, and how did you start it?
I think I was pretty lucky in that I had a supportive partner. Um, and when I started my business, I hadn't been working very long. So our family and our household income was used to me not earning a lot of money. So it was, I only had to earn a certain amount, a smaller amount when I started the business, um, for me to justify it financially. So that's the finance part of it. I understand that from a lot of people, it's a big leap to start a business, because that usually means you're walking away from another fully dependable job and income and having to go into you on your own. Um, So that was that financially, but like inspiration wise, as I said earlier, I wanted a practice that allowed me to do my physical therapy craft in the way that I thought was best. I really am proud of my profession as a physical therapist. I think physical therapists have a lot to offer to the world and to people as far as their health. I don't think the general public understands all that they can get from pursuing the knowledge that a physical therapist can share with you and the type of evaluation that a physical therapist can share with you. But so I really wanted to have a practice that highlighted the best of what the physical therapist's knowledge could give to the general public. And that means that we need more time. And there's a lot of people working in clinics where they don't have a lot of time to give to each patient. That's not their fault. It's like the fault of the way that the system is set up, or the clinic is set up. And then the clinic has to be set up that way. Maybe not their fault either. It's probably because when you take American healthcare insurance, sometimes it doesn't reimburse well enough to justify a long appointment. And so in an effort to just keep the bills paid, the clinics have to keep bringing in lots of patients. And not each patient can be seen for a long amount of time. So I set up a clinic where I could see patients for a longer amount of time, but that does mean that people pay out of pocket for our services. And then they can submit like the receipt to their insurance to get at least partially reimbursed. So going like that, I talked a couple things about the finances, right? Because that's probably like what a lot of people get worried about when they're starting a business. I guess one more thing about the finances, I started really small. My clinic was teeny tiny, just enough space for me. I didn't have a receptionist. I did all online booking, and then I basically borrowed money. Like I took out a credit card that had 0% interest for a year and just bought the minimum amount of equipment that I needed to have like a good foundation for a space. Okay, so that was the finance part of it, but back to the inspiration part of it, I wanted a space that could better serve the gymnasts and dancers. That meant seeing them for a longer amount of time. And I proposed this type of idea to a clinic that I was working for prior to opening my clinic. And it wasn't their model of what they wanted. And so I was like, okay, I get it. That's their business. They don't want to do it this way. I guess maybe if I want to do it this way, I just have to start my own, right? So if you have a problem with the way something is done, you either sit around and complain about it or get upset about it, or you try to make the change. So I tried to make the change and did it. And then on top of that, like I said, when I started PT school, I had kids, and I still had the kids when I started working. And I really wanted to be there for them. Like, I wanted to be able to randomly take time, like an hour off in the middle of the day, to watch their little play at school, or to go, be there for their Halloween parade. And the way that most businesses are set up is such that it doesn't really make sense for a full-time, employee working one-on-one with patients to take random, hour off to go see a Halloween parade. And so my clinic is set up such that all the PTs and Pilates teachers that work for me, they come and go as they please. They don't have to request time off. They just take as much vacation as they want, and they take as much time off as they want. They shift their schedule as they need. That being said, it's of course limited because, the patients need to be seen. The students want a consistent schedule. So we are, limited by that, but not limited by the way that the practice is set up.
Of course, there has to be some limitations on it, and at the same time, in an environment like this, people themselves wouldn't want to go away for much longer. So that's the environment, the community that you have fostered, which is quite lovely. So you also told me about your funds, which is nice. So initially, when you start, how did your team look? What was your team? Was it just you? What all were you doing?
It was just me. It was me. let's see. Yeah, it really was just me. Did not have anybody, no receptionist, no housekeeper. I had a no assistants. I had my husband soon came on as my bookkeeper. He worked for free as my bookkeeper, and yeah, that's it. And then I had a
Um,
payroll company paying basically just me. Then it became clear that I needed some help. So, people that I knew from the past that I went to physical therapy school, they came on and took a few hours, continued working at other places, but took in like a few hours working with me. And I had an assistant in the clinic helping me with just a little like things that the not so glorious things that sometimes I still have to do, like changing the toilet paper and taking out the garbage and refilling the TheraBands and, little things like that. Like
yeah.
all the stuff that when you are a physical therapist or just an employee, you walk in and you just expect for the things to be there, and rightfully so. And so as the owner, sometimes either you have to do it or you have to hire somebody else to do it.
So as a owner, as a fitness business owner, there's a multiple hats that you have to wear initially when you start the business, and there are jobs like you have to do that you didn't even know existed, you didn't even know that you signed up for, and that's what you do for your business. You roll with it and you do it. That's how it works, and that's nice. That's lovely. Uh, so let's move a little bit towards the business side and tell me about like what were the challenges that you initially faced? Did you have any help when it come to acquiring clients, teaching, setting up your website, front desk, marketing, any operations? So all of that, did you have any help? How did you set up initially?
I did a lot of it by myself, and luckily I started my practice in 2012. So I was able to use a lot of the technology that was out there, like it was relatively, I'm of the generation that was right before um, before everybody used computers all the time. So I knew what it was like to be a consumer that doesn't know how to use computers. I also knew how to actually interact with the internet and,
Mm.
software. So I could just, build my own website through different like online platforms. And yeah, I setting up was there was a lot of information online. Like you just look up the information, how do you start a business, and it'll tell you step by step like what kind of things you need to do to legally start a business. Yeah, so I think I learned along the way,
Hmm,
based on whatever was needed.
that's interesting. So initially when you started, so how did you attract the initial clients and how do you acquire members now? How has that
I
changed?
Yeah, so I want to say I just tried to do a good job, and then because I did a good job, word of mouth is the biggest way that
Hmm.
got um, clients before, and how we continue to. Um, I I do a lot of I don't like to spend a lot of money on advertising, right? It feels, to be honest, like I don't know, soulless or something. I really liked going out into the world and giving my time and my knowledge, and and then hoping that my message went out to people, and then they wanted more and would come in. Or if even if they didn't need it or want it, they would share the information with somebody else who did need and want it and would come see me. Um, and then I thought to myself, at least like, when advertising money doesn't work, it's just money that was spent. But if I
Hmm.
go out and educate the public, um, even if no clients come my way, at least I've interacted with the public and done the best that I could to give some good information out there, right? So there's like nothing lost. Um, and that is still how we do things. I probably tried a couple little things here and there of paying for advertising, but very little. We go out and do community events in public, like at different gyms and dance studios, um, for free. And people like our work and then tell their friends about us.
That's the best way to acquire clients. And if you provide a very good client experience, and that's what they come back for. And I also seen that you speak at different events, and that could also be one way to put your knowledge out there, and that's how people can find you. It's okay in this era of internet. It's even if somebody wants to hide, it's very difficult for someone to even hide, and especially for someone who does good work, it cannot be hidden forever, and internet finds you. It's quite a lovely place as well. uh, so initially when you started, so when was the time when you paid yourself for the first time, and how was the feeling when you're like, oh, this is my payroll and I'm paying myself from my business, and how did it feel, and when did it happen?
Oh, I don't know that I can answer that question. I paid myself from the beginning, right?
Hmm.
Once the money, like I know this is not how people run businesses, but basically once the money was spent, I just like don't think about it anymore. And on the money that comes in, I'm like, there's my payment, and hopefully bills get paid. And then, I mean, they did get paid. I don't think that that's like the actual,
Hmm.
you know, that's not what they tell you in business school. But yeah, I paid myself from the beginning.
Nice. If this worked out for you, this is the best thing. If it worked out for you, I think it's everyone has their own things, and it's working out quite lovely for you, which is nice. uh so right now, how many clients you have? How do you retain those clients? What do you do for retention?
Mm, you know, like I said before, I think we just do a good job. And
Hmm.
I do believe that the consumer always has a choice. And
Yeah.
even if I do a good job, the consumer might choose something else.
Hmm.
And that's their prerogative,
Hmm.
right? And they get to choose what they want to do. And so all I can do is like put my best work out there.
Hmm.
We all try to do the same. Luckily, I work with a lot of people that feel the same way about it. And then, just like be a kind person and then hope people come back. Um, that's the basic of it. I guess
Huh.
some nuts and bolts is we try to keep in touch with people,
Hmm.
not like strategically, but just because we actually care, like we check on our schedule and see who hasn't been around in a while, just kind of casually look and go,
Hmm.
oh, that's right. Where has that person been? And then we might reach out to them. Um, we try to reward people who come a lot and play along
Hmm.
with our games. So, as an example, last month we had a little contest. Anybody who booked a class on our app, we that was like an entry into a raffle, and at the end of the month,
Oh.
we gave like a hoodie and Pilates socks and a free class to somebody from that raffle. With the intention of getting everybody to try to use our app because an easier way to book, and we thought maybe
Hmm.
that would make people more likely to continue being clients as if we made it easy for them to schedule a class.
Hmm.
um but yeah, so we like to reward people who
That's good.
who
That's
play
good.
along with our games. We like to give, like we have every month we have a happy hour with some education, and you know
Hmm.
we hope that people stay along because they like being part
Yeah,
of the community.
definitely. So this is the community building part, plus the great I'm sorry, plus the great customer experience that you provide with some engagement that follows through is what you do for retention. And the best thing is, if you have a great client experience, it all starts from there. And then having these engagement activities will definitely keep them coming back. Uh, so who was your first team member or partner? Was it your life partner who became your first partner in the business, who helped you with everything? Was it someone else? Tell me about it.
That's a really good question. And my husband is my like partner for everything, right? But if we're talking about business partner, I do have a PT bestie, a work wife, and she went to physical therapy school with me. Her name is Tanya Goodrich. She has her own practice. It's called Healthy Pelvis. They specialize in pelvic floor physical therapy,
That's good.
and they soon after I started my practice, she started renting space from me. She already had her own practice going on, but she needed a different space from where she was working. So she started renting a room from me. And she continues to rent a room from me. But she also opened up her own space, just like so that she could have a second location a little farther away from where we are, so that she can have a wider community that she can serve. And yeah, I would say that she's my first partner, but it's not like we are actual business partners. We just, we're like parallel playing basically.
Okay, that's lovely. That's nice. Uh, so tell me, what are some of the events that you would never miss, or some communities that you're a part of and you like to be a part of those communities? Are there any such communities and events?
Yeah. Like you mentioned earlier, I'm co-founder of a nonprofit called GymSafe. It's a gymnastics injury prevention nonprofit. There's a board of there's a board that consists of current and previous gymnasts, and any event that GymSafe does, I would not miss. And then, in addition to the nonprofit that I started, I'm also on the board for another organization called Gymnastics Medicine. And they're also a nonprofit with a similar mission. So I don't miss their events. There is a couple dance communities I like to be a part of as well. I recently spoke at a conference by IADAMS, which is the International Association of Dance, Medicine, and Science. I want to say that
That's
I will
interesting.
never miss. I never miss their events, but to be honest, for the past few years since the pandemic, I did. But I just spoke at one of their conferences, and I think from now on, I will not miss any of their events. And there are a couple. There's one local dance organization called that puts together Bay Area Dance Week. And we always try to do an event for that. I And as far as Pilates, I love going to Pilates conferences and physical therapy conferences. So you can usually find me at the American Physical Therapy Association combined section meeting conference. And when there used to be a Pilates Method Alliance conference every year, I would attend that. So I need to find a new Pilates conference to attend. And there's a Pilates Day, the
Mm.
first Sunday of May, International Pilates Day. So we usually try to do an event for that.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah,
good. That's
lots of
lovely.
events. Keeps me busy.
And happy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see talking to you how passionate you're about this, and which is great. Uh, so tell me, what would be your long-term business goal when you think about it? What's your long-term business goal that you're thinking of as of now?
You make me panicky, Najfi. I don't know. I can barely think about what I'm doing tomorrow.
Oh, tell me about tomorrow then.
No, let's see. I feel like at this point, I feel so grateful for the things that I've done. Like, I knew I wanted a clinic that served this population of gymnasts and dancers. Done. I knew I wanted to teach group exercise classes taught by physical therapists. Done. And so it's true. Like, what's the next step? I think that we want to open up another Pilates studio about 30 minutes south of where we are. Three of my employees and a couple hopefuls live 30 minutes away from where we are. And I'm so grateful that they commute, but they would prefer to have a Pilates studio near where they live. And so if all goes well, we'll have another Pilates studio in San Jose, which is 30 minutes south of Belmont. And then I think that I would love to continue to mentor people to do what I do, which is, be a good physical therapist for this particular population, but also when the right person comes along, to mentor them into owning a business. And then maybe it's this business and they'll just they'll take over the business and I'll go and relax somewhere. Travel. I don't know.
No, that's
I
good. That's good.
also like I love snowboarding too. We haven't talked about that much. Last year I became a certified snowboarding instructor. I love Lake Tahoe, which is 4 hours north of where we are. Maybe as I go into like a more chill lifestyle or semi-retirement, maybe I will move to Lake Tahoe and have a Pilates studio there, and maybe be a physical therapist that works well with snowboarders. Um, Still yet to be seen. I'm still
Hmm.
like trying to get this. I still think of the Pilates studio as like a baby, and it's it's time to focus on that and grow that, and then I'll start thinking about like what the next steps are. Oh, and before I started the Pilates studio, before I knew that was going to be an option, I really wanted to have retreats. I wanted to
Okay.
do like health and wellness retreats, in other countries, and so I would love to do that. I
Hmm.
just, it now is not the time with, the fledgling Pilates
Hmm.
studio that needs a lot of hands on care.
That's interesting. Definitely in due time we will do that. One step at a time, as you have worked your way till now. Definitely moving forward, you do the same. So what would be the one piece of advice that you would have for studio owners that would be starting up right away? So somebody who's starting up right now, what would be your advice? How would you want them to go about it? I'll quote you on this.
First of all, my first thought was to new studio owners, if you really feel like your gut is telling you you should do it, I think you should do it. Just go for it. Practical advice, I think that you should think about creating a solid foundation. So imagine where you want the studio to be, say 5 years from now, and make decisions based on the needs of that studio that you're going to have 5 years from now. A specific example would be for a physical therapy clinic or Pilates studio, seeing people one on one. If you have a client, you could do all of your booking on Google Calendar and manually or through Google send uh, reminders
Mm,
and send and manually send invoices and attach it to your that person's name
mm,
somewhere else. Like you could just kind of do that without having to spend a lot of money, but after a year, that's going to be really hard to keep track
mm,
of when that first person came and what they paid way back in the day and what their appointment was like. And so I feel really grateful that I have a digital record of
mm.
my entire business because it's all in one place.
That's lovely. That's lovely. So this, I'm thank you so much for having some time. I also want to thank our listeners to join the podcast for tuning in and getting all the insights from you and learning about your journey, how you started, how you went ahead with it. It was lovely having you over for the podcast, and I'm really hoping that you enjoyed it as well. I'm pretty sure the listeners would also enjoy getting the insights from you. Is there anything that ending statement that you want to say before we end the podcast?
Oh yeah, I thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful for somebody. I love telling the
Definitely.
story because for me, I like to reflect on the journey, and I'm hopeful that something I said um, clicks for somebody, resonates for somebody, and helps them
Definitely.
make a decision for themselves, whether it's towards owning a studio or not.
That's lovely. That's definitely there's a lot people can whoever will be watching. There's a lot they can take from this episode, and I'm glad they also tuned in for these insights.